Welcome back. Today we are going to talk about run form, and I'm going to share some tips and some cues to help you get more speed from any level of fitness. These are some things that I picked up from a local coach here in Boulder called Bobby McGee. If you ever get the chance to work with Bobby individually or in a group, I really hope you take advantage of that. There's a lot to learn from him. So let's shrink me down and put me up at the top. So first up, I recommend that you incorporate hills in your basic run week year round. There's two main benefits. And let's talk about the uphill benefit first. This is my buddy Klaus running. And one of the things that you cannot do when you're running uphill is run with straight legs, run with a long pendulum. You need to recover the leg with a short pendulum because otherwise you're going to bang into the hill. So hills reinforce a very efficient muscle firing pattern in your running. Likewise, on the downhill, if you're not lifting your feet appropriately, you're going to be banging into stuff and tripping. So trails and hills, highly recommend year round in your program. And you mix it with your flat running within the program. Now, this position that we see from Klaus in this 5-photo thing. So you can see it looks in the first picture like he's running with straight legs, but as he comes through in the middle picture, you can see he's recovering with a short pendulum. And that's really, and you can see his body lean, his angle of attack in there as well. So he's not running vertically. He's got a little bit of a lean. It's not some massive lean, but it's very helpful. And you can see the lean here. The other thing you can see with Klaus is actually the lean that he's got. His upper body is a little bit more vertical than his lower body. We're going to get into that. I got another picture that you can look at that. So now let's go on to his cues. Now, I don't want you thinking about what's happening below your waist. I think the key thing there is just make sure the foot is hitting under your body so that the impact is under the body. It's too far from your brain is one of the things that we found is if you're thinking about your feet, you're not thinking about some other things which can be much more helpful to your running economy. And those other things are hands, elbows, spine, and chin. So we're going to go through these one by one, and I can show you what I'm talking about. Hands up. Klaus's hands are up through the entire run cycle. You can see his hands are up, which means he's running a short pendulum in terms of his recovery. The second thing is elbows. The elbows drive backwards. So it's elbow drive that's setting the cadence. And you'll find if you want to lift your cadence, if you speed up your elbow drive, that's the most efficient and the easiest way for you to lift your cadence. And if you notice late in the race that your cadence is lagging, then you'll speed it up by shortening your stride and moving your elbows a little bit quicker. The other tip to do with hands is if you think about your hands holding two platters and then you close with a light grip, and then you're going to drive the elbows backwards. So it's not thumbs up or even thumbs in like you're still on the bike. It's thumbs out, and you're going to drive the elbows backwards. That's going to avoid having your arms coming across your body and creating lateral movement. You want all the movement going forward when you're running. The next tip is something that I also give freestyle swimmers, which is a tall spine. You'll often see in triathlon, runners are running as if they're still on the bike. So they're sitting a little bit into their stance. You want to be tall in your stance. And if you do yoga, they're always talking about mountain pose and the various poses and being tall and having the body and the core engaged within it. It's very much like that, freestyle running and all that. You want that length running through the spine and all the way up to the top of the head. And then I've got another picture that really shows the benefit of adjusting the chin. So this is me running a few years back. And you can see I'm looking out to the horizon. Now the cue is chin down. And by moving my chin down, my gaze is going to come down, and that'll tip my head slightly forward, which will tip my torso slightly forward. So this is going to move my angle of attack. Instead of having a slight banana shape in me, I'm going to be tipped more. I'm going to be driving more forward. I'm going to be getting more forward energy. And if you shoot video of yourself and you notice your head's going up and down, I recommend you look for this, because you might just be able to adjust your chin and you're going to reduce that up and down that you've got, and you're going to be saving energy, because every time you're having to lift yourself, that's energy that's going up that you're needing to use to go up as opposed to going forward. So you want to have the body aligned so you can see my power coming off the ground here, and I want to be moving myself forward. And if you have a curve in your back, you want to avoid that. So finally, now let's talk about technique. You should be using your best technique all the time. Easy runs, steady runs, hill runs. Always ingrain that best technique. When you're fatigued at the end of the race, your default technique is going to be your average technique. That's going to be what comes out. So you need to be ingraining this all the time. And this is a picture of me doing some tire pulls, working on ingraining that best technique under load. And many athletes, when they do their strides or their fastest training, their most intense training, their technique falls apart. And you're really leaving some gains on the table. If you're doing something that's intense, or you're doing something when you're fatigued, that's when you really want to focus on driving those techniques, those techniques that you want to have coming out in the race. You want to be practicing those under duress. And this is me, as a side view of me doing the tire drags, and that's a mountain bike tube around that's running back to the truck tire behind me. And we would do, so effectively you're doing strides, but you're doing strides under load. We would do these fresh before we did track sessions. We would also do them fatigued at the end of long runs. And when you start out, it's going to be good enough just to do strides without any load. And then the next step up from that is going to be hills. So using the hills to give you the load. And then ultimately, when you're an elite or a very experienced runner, you can start experimenting with some of these techniques, which are doing the tire drags. I found these very effective when I was training to win races, both doing them fresh to activate muscles before track, and also doing them fatigued at the end of a big day, at the end of a long run. So I hope this helps. If you've got questions, hit me up on Twitter or in the comments here on YouTube. Thanks for listening.